Howdy, everyone, and welcome to Recipe for Reality on December 18th. I thought it was the 14th, so I was going to make a joke, but it's not. But it is at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are live. We do this sometimes live, sometimes not. Depends. We had to do this one live because the finale is in 4 hours. But the exciting thing is that the finale is in 4 hours, and we get to talk about it. We get to talk about the
Finale
2 episodes we've
day.
gotten since, aka Operation Italy and Finale Part 1. We'll get into that in a sec. Why they just wouldn't call this a finale and make the last one just an episode, a double boot episode, but we'll talk about it. And we get to catch up. Zach, how are you? How's your week and
Tired.
week's been? Yeah, you've been busy.
Tired.
Yeah.
But I'm good. I'm excited
Yeah.
for a really cool finale. Excited to see who wins. I have like a pretty clear idea of who I think is most likely to win.
Yeah.
But I mean, or I think who like has the who of the four we have left have the highest probability to win, and who maybe we're not looking at a win from them. But other than Survivor, my week is good. I'm ready for a holiday break. That is what I am ready for. Dylan, how are you today? How's your week?
I'm good. I got my buff on, but I'm casually wearing it more tastefully as a collar. We got some viewers. I just want to shout out. JD Domash is watching. Carly was looking for something on YouTube to watch. Well, boy, we have something good for you. Yeah, but we are here to talk about Survivor. I mean, Survivor finale is so exciting, but also bittersweet because I feel like there's one of two ways a Survivor finale could go. It could either be a shocker and it could end up like leaving you on such a high and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait for next season. Or it goes exactly as planned and you're like, all right, well, we knew that was coming. It's more of the coronation, and I feel like we're leaning toward the coronation tonight. And I think Carly says it best. I'm really pulling for Rachel, but it could be boring if she wins. I think that's kind of, JD's also rooting for Rachel. I'm rooting for Rachel, but I think the thing is now the edit and the game have set it up so clearly that Rachel, as long as she doesn't lose in fire, she can lose immunity. She just has to not lose in fire. She is probably 99% our winner of the season unless she totally botches the final jurors. But we also thought 43 once Jesse was in our finale. We knew Jesse wasn't getting the final three based on the edit, but we figured, Cassidy was probably the most likely winner, and she wasn't. It was Gabler. And last year we thought it was very clearly Kenzie, but then those votes were coming in and we thought, oh, are we getting a tie? And then she only beat Charlie by 1 vote. So I think the finale, if it does have a level of intrigue and mystery, if something crazy happens, I think it will be really, really cool because this has been such a good season. But my only worry is if it's as straightforward as a, Rachel and then Sue 0 vote finalists, like if it's that easy, then I'm going to be a little bit bummed because the season's been so all over the place, power shifts. And this is kind of my first question for you, Zach, before we get into this finale. The 2-part finale idea. Do you like the idea of a 2-part finale? Because Jeff introduced last episode as if it was a finale. He kind of went through each player and their game, and then we got a double boot of Andy and Genevieve. But it was like that. I mean, most seasons have a penultimate episode with 2 boots and then the finale. So I just don't know why call that the finale. I have a theory, but like why split it up into 2? Why not just make this a final 4 finale or do a final 5 finale, make Andy's boot the penultimate boot? I have like 2 theories as to might be why, but do you like this whole 2-part finale? Do you view that as part of the finale?
I definitely view it as part of the finale. I think the reason it's a special part of the finale is because we got 2 boots rather than just getting Andy's boot and kind of leaving it for whatever was going to happen next. And then
Zach, can I just ask you something? Is there an ice cream truck outside your apartment?
Oh no, it's the music. Do you remember that music that I was using last? I can turn it down a little bit. I turned it down a little bit.
Sorry, it like had it was a little bit of a low bass hum too. That was
no, it's okay. I turned it down.
I wasn't sure what it was. It's fine. You're good.
I think the reason, and I mean, hopefully this just means that they are expecting this to become a norm for their future seasons. I think that the reason why they created this, I'm launching into my theory because do I like it? I don't really know yet. We're going to find out if I like how it ends tonight. I think that's going to have a very big impact on whether or not I'm going to enjoy what we get in a 2-part finale, because I think one of the reasons, because we get this entire like rundown of people's games and what merit they have, what they could be doing, what they couldn't be doing. Oh, the low bass hum might be the leaf blower that's out there.
That's what it is. Because I heard a little like twinkly, like higher, lighter music, which I think is what you turned down. And then I heard the
No,
Boo. Okay,
no, 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 no.
it's a leaf blower. No, I just wanted to make sure. I thought for some reason like
Yeah,
I
it's a
was like,
leaf
if you're
blower, of
hungry,
course,
go
right
eat. Like,
outside.
yeah,
It's a leaf blower right outside my thing.
gotcha.
Um,
It
um,
sounds like an
that's
amp, like you're plugging a bass into an amp, but it was kind of dope. Don't worry. Back to what
uh,
you're saying. Sorry.
I think the reason we probably get this two-part finale is because they want to explain to us that any of them are viable options to win. Which, even though I get, again, I think the very clear answer here should be that Rachel is your most probable and likely winner. I can see a world where all four of the players have enough merit to win,
Mm,
depending on how they sell themselves.
mm,
I think my thing about the two-part finale is I just don't know how it could set up, aside from like giving us the explanation of like this is why any one of them deserve to win. I don't understand how it could lead to anyone else besides how any of them could frame their games in a way that would cause them to be a winner besides Rachel, just based on like what we know from the season as a whole and what we've gotten to see of them. So maybe
mhm.
the reason it exists is to highlight the games of someone like Tinu, who fans have really seemed to turn on. Like they were probably one of the highest contenders at the beginning of the game, and now all
Yeah.
that. Also, I just want to say the hate for Teeny is really undeserved. I get it. Game's game. Don't be mean
Yeah.
online. You
Yeah.
you humans.
Yeah, it's the same thing as Liz. Every time someone gets mad about a food reward, everyone kind of turns on them. We saw it with Liz last season. We saw it with Teeny now.
True.
Here's the thing: when you're out there and you're starving, emotions get the best of you, and you
Yeah,
lash out.
for
I,
sure.
I personally was turned off by how Teeny was acting at that Operation Italy reward, but I think it's also because Teeny wasn't the underdog at that point. So to see the underdogs get the reward and then make that big move against Teeny and Caroline, like I love Caroline. Caroline was my second favorite probably on the season behind Genevieve, and she went out in the biggest, coolest blindside of the season. But I still loved it because of the move. Like I think that's
Yes.
the thing is like I'm letting my emotions get invested because of the gameplay. I was more rooting against Teeny because I wanted to see the majority fall more so than like I hate
Yes.
Teeny. Because honestly, being honest, if I was on that island, Teeny's probably gonna be my number one best friend out there. And I think that's what's so
Yeah.
cool about the season too, is you can see these people. Genevieve is kind of the viewer's like favorite person to root for, but on the island we see she has trouble making those social bonds because she doesn't want to play socially. She doesn't want to get her heart into it. She wants to think things logically through. And then Andy, same thing. Like Andy, everyone can't stand him, but he's this endearing underdog for the audience too. Like I love how
Right.
like the perception to the audience is always so different than what's on the island. And I think if I was on the island, I'd love Teeny. I think watching Teeny also because I'm much more of a strategic thinker when it comes to the game. I'm frustrated by their gameplay at times. But also, I think everyone in this finale has made some bad gameplay. The only one who hasn't is Rachel, and even Rachel has been out of the loop on a few things.
Right.
Operation Italy being one of them. The fact that she was going home if Saul didn't use the advantage on her. So, like, I think each of these four has a reason why they shouldn't win. My only thing is, like, to kind of go a little bit against what you said. Like, I don't see any of the other three winning over Rachel. And I think that's what you said too. But like, I don't see a world where Sue or Teeny are the winner of this game. Like,
Yeah.
unless something crazy happen and their move is the final four move. The
Right.
only thing I think, I could see Jeff's logic of making this the finale being like, we need Andy and Genevieve in the finale. They're like two of the biggest strategists of the season. Let's put them in the
Yes.
finale. But then why not just do a big 3 hour, 3.5 hour finale with
Right.
six? The problem is when you air them back to back, this feels like the finale. That doesn't. And I think if the answer is so basic as Rachel just wins, then I don't know if this is a very climactic ending, if they're saving their final four for this. If final four is like Teeny or Sue going on fire and then Rachel kind of sweeping most of the votes in the end, it's not an exciting finale. Whereas I think if you were to attach even the Genevieve boot, because that was a cool intrigue. Is the idol fake? Is it not? Are they bluffing us? Are they
Right.
not? Like that would have been a cool way to kind of open the finale. And I think, yes, technically Andy's boot opened the finale, but if it's a 2 week finale, it doesn't feel like a finale. Like a
Right.
finale is the final episode. That's what a finale is.
Yeah.
And usually if it's a 2 part finale, it's aired the same night. It's like a 2 hour finale. You're getting both
Or
parts.
or
Or day
aired
one, day two.
Wednesday and
Yeah,
Thursday,
if they had
right?
aired if they had aired part one Tuesday, then I'd been like, okay, this is the finale. But the problem is, it's been a week now. Though that seemed like the penultimate episode. So like, yeah, and I think my other theory. So my one theory was that they wanted Andy to be a part of the finale because he's the biggest character of the season. He's the
Yeah.
Emily Flippin, and I think it felt wrong not having Emily in the finale of
Right.
45. So they're like, you know what? Let's do it here where we do a 2 part finale. That way, Andy gets to be in the finale. But I also think another reason is Operation Italy was so massive that you can't just like And you can't follow that up with anything else but the finale, because that is really the move that sets the game forward for the final leg. And I do think that's also part of it too, which we can get into because we never got to talk about Operation Italy when it happened. I saw you at your show and I was like, we got to talk about Operation Italy. And then we just like couldn't make it work to record in time. But an amazing move, like an
Yes.
amazing move. I mean, you're down a 2-4 or sorry, a 2-5 minority. You swing over Andy, who's the most wishy-washy, but you're still in a minority. But you're able to, because of a fake idol that you can convince everyone else is real by flashing it to the right person, being Teeny, you're able to split the 4 into 2 and 2, and you're able to take that 3. It's a plurality vote. You very rarely see that, where 3 people can go up against 4 and still come out victorious. And the only way you do that is if you split that 4 up, and they did. And I think it's because every single person played their part perfectly well.
Yes.
Genevieve sold a fake idol very well. Sam sold the whole fact that he was going after Genevieve really well to try to make people believe that they weren't working together. And then Andy, obviously being the one who flipped, had to pretend like he was on their side and make sure they split the votes and make sure, because if they all pile on Genevieve, it doesn't work, because then Genevieve goes home. If they all pile on Sam, it doesn't work because Sam goes home. They needed to split the votes so all 3 of them could vote for Caroline. And they also need to make sure Caroline didn't play the idol, which is also the key move to that. Is you do a little preamble right before the votes are read, and Genevieve's like, no, I'll hold on to it, to make everyone realize, okay, she's going home, so Sue doesn't play it on Caroline. Every single element of that move was so perfect. Now, I've seen people online basically say, well, Andy went home right after that, and so did Genevieve right after that, so it's a terrible move. But I have an argument as to why it's not, but I would like to hear your opinion on Operation Italy. Like, did you think it was a good move? Obviously, in the moment, we all thought it was a good move, but do you like the move? Do you think it is as good a move? Because everyone's saying it's the best episode of the new era, and I want to know what you think of that.
I mean, I think I would agree with the fact if a minority can pull off a majority vote on the like very clear majority and get away with it like pretty flawlessly. I mean, here's the thing, right? Is that I would say probably top 5 of the next era. I would probably put it, or of the new era, I'd probably put it at number 1. I don't know many other moments that I've watched personally that I would equate to
the
it
only
of the
one
new
I can
era.
kind of rival it with is Cody and Jesse, where Jesse takes Cody's idol and votes him out. Yeah,
but I think what wasn't impressive about that was we were watching a Cody, or not a Cody, we were watching a Jesse like rise to power the entire time. So it wasn't as satisfying as like the entire time people have been flipping back and forth. People have been, you know, they've been in the majority one night. They've screwed someone over the next day. There was so much lead up and build up. And I mean, especially for someone like Genevieve and Sam, who like, if you're looking at it from a strategic point, Genevieve and Sam should have been gone way earlier than they were. So the fact that people were leaving Genevieve and Sam in this game for that long, who had already in their own rights made moves and made things happen to benefit their own games, and people kind of looked at it, said like, that was sneaky, and then looked the other way anyway. I mean, I think that from the standpoint of good gameplay, it's great gameplay on Sam and Genevieve's part, because if they were able to pull off a big move both separately from each other, and then they were able to come together days later and be like, we could go home tonight, but what if we didn't, right? Like, and they were able to pull that off. I think it's a great move. And Genevieve and Andy went home pretty much back to back immediately following it, but you know who's still there? Sam. And
True.
Why would you? And from Sam's, and it didn't have to be Sam. It could have been either of them. From Sam's standpoint, it's got to be a good move, because why would Genevieve or Andy vote against you when they know exactly how much work went into that move? Why, if they're sitting in the jury and they get to go tell people, and and not to spoil my rankings, but I mean, like, Sam does one of two things for me. He either gets to, and I know that this is like, of course he does one of these two things.
he either loses or he wins.
Well, he's either your fire boot, or he's in the finale, and it's because he's probably won immunity. Because again, I don't know why any of the 3 of them, Rachel, Teeny, or Sue, would keep Sam there after that. I don't know why. They've gotten rid of Andy. They've gotten rid of Andy. They've gotten rid of Genevieve. The next obvious thing to do is get rid of Sam. And the thing is, Dylan, I can see a world where even if he doesn't win immunity, I can still see a world where, depending on who does win immunity, I can see a world where he still manages to convince them to put him in the finale with them, and be like, "Listen,
Yeah,
I
because
pissed,
Rachel is the biggest threat. So if Sue or Teeny were to win, you could easily say, "Hey, Teeny,
right, you
you
got
got
to
to take
put
Rachel
Rachel in
out."
there."
But in that sense, I think Teeny would be like, "All right, you go battle Rachel then in fire,"
Of
or
course,
Teeny themselves would battle
but
Rachel in
but
fire.
I don't think Sue would, and I think that
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing to
Sue's the
remember is
key to the
that,
finale.
well, spoiler alert, she's pretty low. She's not. I mean, she's not winning, right? Like, I think
Mm,
it would have to be pretty crazy for either
yeah,
Teeny or Sue to win. We're going to probably be talking this entire time about whether or not Sam or Rachel have the most
yeah,
likelihood to win. And I don't know what your ranking looks like. It's probably, again, very similar to mine. It's really all going to depend on who comes out of
yeah,
fire,
yeah.
because one of the two of them's coming out of fire, and I don't see a world where either of them don't win. But like you said, like we said that about Cassidy, and it didn't
Mhm,
really matter in the end
yeah.
because of Gabler's final speech. And maybe that's the case. We'll see.
Mhm. Yeah, I honestly think it's one of those things where we'll get into the rankings, but it's like if Sam loses in fire, Rachel wins. If Rachel loses in fire, Sam wins. If they both survive, I still think Rachel wins. So I think really Sam's only path is Rachel to lose in fire. But the question
Correct.
is, how do we go about that? Does he win immunity, put himself in against Rachel? Does he try to put someone else against Rachel? If he doesn't win immunity, does he convince someone to put him in with Rachel? Like there's I think the most interesting part of this finale is gonna be seeing who is competing in fire. Because we
Yes.
know if Rachel has immunity, it's gonna be all right, who can get out Sam in fire? If
Right.
Sam wins immunity, it's who can get Rachel out in fire. If neither of them win immunity, they're probably both in fire together. So it's really
Right.
one of those things where it's like I just don't. I don't think the intrigue is who's going to win this game because I think after fire we will know for sure. If Rachel is in
Yes.
final three, she wins, and I
Well,
think if
we
Rachel's not in final three, Sam wins. I think that's as simple as it is, and I think that's why I'm so frustrated by this 2-part finale thing because now I think all the drama of the finale was in the 6 and the 5 vote because
well,
the 6 vote being like, oh shit, Genevieve won immunity. Now do they go after Sam or Andy? And then Andy makes his big plea and it backfires on him and he goes home because of Operation Italy because he bragged about it. He goes home because he doesn't know Rachel has an idol. And then the second vote being Genevieve versus Rachel, who's going to finally come out on top and they finally get out Genevieve. Like those were the two most intriguing boots. Now, I just don't think there's as much intrigue here at the final 4 round unless Rachel loses fire. Then it's like, okay, now it's open season again because maybe people don't like Sam. Maybe there's a way Teeny can slide in there and win. Like, I just don't know though. I feel like Rachel's win is so obvious that I'm like, what is this finale going to be other than just
so that's
2 hours of waiting to get to Rachel to win? You know?
so that's why I am sort of that's why I'm sort of skeptical. Like, I have my
Yeah, you're
ranking,
thinking
and
it could be another Gabler thing. We're just
well,
out of
I
left
think,
field the very
and the
last
thing
second.
is,
Sam
I
wins.
think it's pretty basic what I'm looking at right now. I mean, like, it's got a pretty cut and dry order. In fact, I like wrote it out and then I was like, is it too easy? And I flip-flopped
That's
something
the
and I
thing.
was
It's
like,
too easy.
okay. But the reason, and again, I have to think from like a CBS, they've been hyping this season up. I think, did Jeff say something about like it's his favorite New Era season so far? Did he
I think
say
he
that?
said that about 46, I think. I don't think he said that about 47. All he said is there's just so many power shifts, and he said it's
So
a big season focused on community. Those were the two things
so
he said. I don't think he said it was his favorite or not. I
so
didn't get
listen,
a vibe that it wasn't, though.
So listen, this is my thing, right? Is that like we're sitting here and we're talking about power shifts, and right now the obvious people in power are Rachel and Sam in terms of like their ability and their control of the game. I do think something that we often forget about I think something we often forget about the game of Survivor in general is that the jury is the one with the power, and the people who play the game and sit at the finale only have enough power to try and sway them. Now, the problem is, right, Teeny and Sue haven't really done anything to sort of like earn the jury's respect in a certain regard.
Yeah, they play great
However,
social games, but they've neither of them have made moves yet.
my question and the thing I'm most curious about is I'm actually more curious to know what happens in Ponderosa with this group of 4, because again, Rachel's gameplay is the best. I would say Sam's at the end of the day is probably the second best. But in regards to like likability and connection, I think the only person who rivals Sam is actually probably Teeny. And because of that, and then you have to think about the fact that like Sue has always had Caroline, and Caroline, I'm sure, is very much advocating for Sue and Ponderosa, probably
And Gabe.
also advocating probably advocating a lot for Teeny as well. Like there is a world where I see people in Ponderosa advocating against Rachel and Sam because of the fact that they may not respect the fact that like they kept too many secrets,
Yeah.
or like Teeny and Sue were able to be so open and honest about the things that they were doing with people, and they weren't like just continually sweeping things under the rug, and yet they were continuously unnoticed as threats in this game. Again,
Except
if
for the
I
red
can,
blood all over Sue's face.
well, yeah, except for like
He
except for
tried to
those
sweep
dumb,
that under the rug, and it just seeped out.
not good. But I can see a world where, and you again, you have to think that it's either going to be the obvious thing, and then it's like, well, why did you do this? You didn't need to do this. Maybe you were just, maybe it's what the schedule was supposed to be, and then they
Yeah.
realized that they
That
bought one episode too many from the network,
that is
right?
exactly what
Or
Carly said too. They might have planned an extra episode, and then instead of doubling up earlier, they doubled up at the end. Like
yeah,
I could see that being the case. Yeah.
um, we could speculate for hours. We could speculate forever. I all of this to say, I do think Operation Italy is a great move. I think it's probably top episode of the new era in my
Yeah.
ranking as of right now. It's a better version of no, but you can have this fake one, right? Like
Yeah.
that is what that moment tried to be, and I was, again, that was my first.
Well,
That's
that
my
was a
first
great
season.
moment. What I liked about that moment is we didn't see the pre follow up.
Yes,
We didn't see the follow up. We saw it post tribal. They showed a flashback. What I liked about Operation Italy from a entertainment standpoint is we saw it laid out from the top. Andy had the move, and I think that's why people are saying it's a bad move, because Andy went out immediately falling. But I'll tell you why it's not for Andy. So Andy makes this move, gets Genevieve and Sam back, and he tells us very early on the reward. He's like, I had a plan once we got to the end and I had my majority that I would take the minority and go up against the majority. So that way I'm perfectly placed in the middle. He made it work, but he also told us everything each person had to do for the mission. They each told us what they had to do for the mission, and they did it. And I
right.
think the best part about it is that, like, even though we knew what their plan was, at the end we still thought, because it was Andy who came up with it, it could still fuck up. And I think that's what made it such good TV, is because we were like, you know what, it can't work that perfectly because Andy started it. And I think
Right.
that's the best thing about the season, is that the guy who was passed out day one on the floor is the guy who pulled this off. And like, yes, Genevieve and Sam helped pull this off, but they wouldn't have done it if Andy hadn't been like,
Right.
hey guys, we need to make a move. Otherwise, I think Sam and Genevieve are drawing
Well,
ahead, and
and
they're
so
seventh and sixth place. I think really the key was Andy had to approach them to get this started, because they weren't
and
going to
so
approach Andy.
this again, this is one of those things that I can imagine we see a finale that, like, again, let's say for a second that let's say that Rachel's not in the finale. Let's say that she loses fire against Sam. Sam's Achilles heel has always been the fact that he feels a great ownership over Andy and a great ownership over the things that Andy has done. And the truth of the matter is, someone like Andy, who, and you have to think, this is something that I feel like I've had a lot of like looking at to do while like watching Survivor and kind of learning how the editing is done. You have to imagine every time that we're given kind of this insight into Andy, as to how he feels, like people don't see him as like a viable person or a viable partner. He's just easy, and they think they can manipulate him, and in reality, like his 13 going on 30 moment, the things like that, right? Like, you have to ask yourself, like, why do we continue to see things like that? Because it's either a winner's edit or it's going to be heartbreaking. But also, there's absolutely a world where Sam tries to take credit for Operation Italy in a finale and say, like, look at what I did with that. And Andy goes, I did that.
Yeah.
You were a player, but I did that. And I think that too, I would imagine Andy probably has a good sway at Ponderosa, especially after that, because especially from someone like Caroline, who, when you're the one who got, how do you not
She
have a
definitely got
little
to
bit,
respect the move. Yeah.
right? Like, how do you not have the
Especially her.
respect for the move?
I think that's why she's the perfect person to blindside with it, because she's going to be the most like, that was great, guys. Like, I think if you do that to Teeny will never forgive you for that.
Right.
Like, I really think Teeny plays too emotionally. Same with Sue. Like, I think Caroline was the perfect person to do that too, because Rachel won immunity. You couldn't. I will say the number one reason why I think Operation Italy was a great move is because if Rachel doesn't have an idol, you get her out next, and you, Genevieve, and Sam are the final three.
Yes.
The only reason this move doesn't work, because you know what we see the immediate next night after Operation Italy? Teeny flips to them. Teeny's like, I had no idea what was going on. I'm indebted to you guys. And now Rachel and Sue are on the bottom, and Rachel's like, what the fuck? Not only did Andy, Genevieve, and Sam pull off that move, but they also were able to pull Teeny after the fact And the only reason Andy goes next is because Rachel has an idol. Because if
Right.
Rachel doesn't have an idol, then Rachel goes home in sixth place, and then final five. At that point, I think they're still looking at Genevieve as the next biggest threat. They
Yep.
try to get her. Andy's in your final four, and I
Yep.
think they're
And he
still going to go
probably
for Sam
wins.
over him. And yes, if he goes out in four, fire making, fine. Then like that's his journey. But like the only thing standing in his way of this being the best move in Survivor history in terms of like getting the end after is the idol, which Rachel kept secret. And I think that's why you always
Right.
keep an idol secret, because Rachel told Sue at the very last minute when she had to that she had an idol so they could both vote for the same person, being Andy. But until then, Rachel hadn't told a soul. And I think that's such an important key to the game that I think we're learning after seeing 46 people go back to back to back to back to back with idols. And then 47 now, seeing the only two people with idols that didn't that kept their mouths shut are now in your final four, Sue and Rachel, and they played idols when they didn't even really. Oh, Sue didn't need to even play it, but like Rachel played it at the very last minute when she needed to. She didn't need to waste it before it, and I think that's the thing is like Andy's move. If Rachel doesn't have an idol, Andy's move is gold because Rachel goes out next, and then you've pretty much locked up at least final four. And then if you can win fire, you've pretty much locked up the game because all you have to say is I did Operation Italy, and that changed the course of the game. Because at that point now you have Genevieve, Sam, and Teeny on your side now because Teeny's flipped. So I really think that was the biggest thing. As honestly, as soon as it ended, because our power rankings last week, I'll tell you and I'll show you, I had Andy at the bottom because I knew that this was going to backfire because of Rachel's idol. But what I didn't expect was Teeny to flip. As soon as Teeny flipped in the beginning of the finale last week, I was like, shit, that move was not just brilliant because of the blind side, but they were able to swing a whole number. Now Sue and Rachel are in the minority. And I thought that was the most impressive part of it. And really, like, I honestly would love to see what happens if Rachel wins immunity, because then she gives an idol to Sue, and then what happens. But anyway, I just think that's the biggest defense is like in a world where she doesn't have an idol, that is such a good move. And Andy's sitting in four. The only reason he goes out is because Rachel, no one knew she had an idol. And I think that's what Rachel's biggest move is. It's not playing the idol because she had to play the idol. It's keeping it a secret so she knew exactly when to play it, and it's playing her shot in the dark to suss out if she needed to play it at the Sierra boot. Those are the two idol moves that I'm going to go in history saying like are her two best moves of the season, is making sure not to share her idol until the very last minute with Sue, and then also being able to do that shot in the dark fake play to suss out the jury to see, or suss out everyone else to see, do I need to play it or not?
Dylan, keep talking. I have to go get a tissue to blow my nose.
No, you're good. It's congestion season, baby. But yeah, that's my defense of Operation Italy. Because I know a lot of people have been like, well, Andy went home next, so it's a bad move. It's a bad move if Rachel didn't have an idol and Andy went home next. But the thing is, Rachel had an idol. So really, no one could have foreseen that coming. And honestly, I think her winning immunity at the final seven when Operation Italy happened also made it possible that Caroline went home. Because if Rachel hadn't won there, she would have used the idol there and it would have been a whole fluke. So I think everything just happened so perfectly to make Operation Italy happen and function the way it did. And really, if Rachel doesn't have an idol, we're looking at it as a potential game-winning move for Andy. And I can transition to the next point because I know Zach's going to be back in a sec, but I loved how the reason Andy went home is not because people didn't like him, didn't trust him because he's a flip-flopper, but because he's a good game player. I love how at the end, he was basically like, hey, Rachel, I need to tell you what I did because I don't think the jury respects me. And I know Zach said Ponderosa, like Caroline would probably respect him for the move, but like Saul didn't respect Andy. Gabe didn't respect Andy. Sierra sure as hell didn't respect Andy. So I think, his thinking of like, let me tell Rachel who's going home tonight. She knows she's going home tonight. Let me tell her what I've done so she can go tell the jury what I've done and help spread that good wealth for him. Like, I thought that was a genius move. Again, if she doesn't have an idol. That's the thing is Andy's playing optimally. Andy's playing optimally for someone who is playing in a game with no idols. And I think that's the best thing, is that he only goes home because he's a good game player. And honestly, until then, if he hadn't said anything to Rachel, Sam goes home there, and he's still in four.
Here's what I'll also say is that the storytelling of Andy and Rachel is such an important part of the season. Absolutely. Because, we're sitting there. It's been 2 months at this point now, and we're sitting there after those first episodes, Dylan, you and I here being like, why would you do that? Like that was such a big, it was the focus of episode 1, and everyone was so infuriated online, everywhere else after that group because we were upset. Well, because we didn't want to see John leave so early, but also it seems like such a no-brainer to take out Andy. And I saw a tweet from someone the other day, immediately following Andy's boot, that was like, I'm sad to see Andy go, but at least it will tell other future players to always get rid of the paranoid one first. because even though they're paranoid at that first moment, it doesn't mean that they're a bad game player. And I think that the only reason, Dylan, that I think I cannot imagine a world, and again, I know we keep being like, oh, like our ranking. It doesn't really matter. Like we've already said a million times, we think we know what's probably going to happen. We just don't want it to be boring. The only reason I can imagine a world where they focus so much on it and they give us so much Andy and Rachel over and over and over and over again is because one of them is going to win. And without Andy here anymore, it just doesn't make a single bit of sense to not have Rachel win. You know what I mean? Like, but the storytelling through them, especially when like for the majority of the beginning of the season, Teeny's the storyteller, right? So we're so focused on Teeny, we're so focused on the moving parts around Gata and you know the things with things happening with Sam and Sierra. And what I realized while I was sitting I was thinking about as we were going to record this, I remember I was watching with McKenna Schulte. Shout out McKenna if you ever watch this, right? We were sitting in the Airbnb waiting for Amber Kearney and Lauren Pratt's wedding the day of. And Laura and McKenna was watching that episode that Sierra goes home. And I remember sitting there and being like, there's so much focus on Rachel this episode. And being like, come to think of it, there's been like a lot of focus on Rachel like every episode. And it was those first moments where I was like, and that's the episode where she gets the idol. She ends up keeping a secret, right? And that's
the auction,
you have to imagine like they had been setting her up for that moment for weeks. They had started setting her up way back when Sierra left, and what we were talking about is like, is that a good game move for Sam? And the only thing that we could say about her was like, brilliant move to play your shot in the dark to suss people out. But then like what else kind of happens after that? Only now here at the end to be like, oh my God, they've been setting her up with a winner edit. And it's sort of like the Erica of it all, right? Where like Rachel had like a low visibility in the beginning. She was so on the outs. We couldn't even.
Yeah, and Annika went home. Like her number one, like she was on the outs of that tribe. And she's on that split tribe by herself with all the other not Lavo, not Gata. What's the third one? I always forget it. The blue tribe. Tuku. She's with all the other Tukus, and like when we did our power rankings, we're like, is it that easy that Rachel's just gonna go home, or is she gonna somehow win immunity? And she ended up getting this advantage from Saul. But yeah, you're right. Like she had she faced so much adversity in the beginning half of the game that it made her just kind of a sitting number in the merge, which is the perfect person you want to be. You don't want to be calling the shots, because look what happened with Sam and Genevieve. They were calling the shots up until the merge, and then they become the underdogs because everyone else is on to them. And now the fact that they made it to 5th place for Genevieve and Sam making it all the way to Final Four, potentially Final Tribal, like that is so impressive.
Potentially winning.
And potentially winning, yes, because he is the next winner if it's not Rachel. Like I think I do not see a world where Teeny or Sue win this game unless Teeny takes out Rachel in fire by putting themselves in against Rachel. That's the only other way I see it, and I don't think Sue would do that. So I really think that is really so impressive that they were able to go, because I've said from the top, Sierra's biggest flaw was that she didn't boot out Sam instead of Annika, because if she gets rid of Sam instead of Annika, I think her, Annika, Rachel, and potentially Andy can just run this game. But I think the problem is she went into the merge, had a big target with Sam. She's the one who goes home, but then Sam is a big target because they just assume he's calling the shots with Sierra. Genevieve's calling the shots on Lavo, and who was calling the shots on Tuku? Nobody. They were all calling the shots, which is why they all went back to back. Gabe, Kyle, Caroline, so I do think that's what's so interesting about this season is that like the people who were the ones on the outs at the beginning of the game, like Teeny, who was not included on the Keyshawn boot, like Andy, like Rachel, they are the ones who are now the power players at the end. And I just find that so fun. Even though Teeny has not gotten their way all season until this episode, and even this episode where they got their way and Genevieve went home, they still voted for Sam. They still somehow voted wrong. And I was like, Teeny, come on. I know that was a plan, but I'm like, at least decide to split your vote and be on the side that works. But yeah, I really think it is one of those things where it's just so fascinating. We've never seen this in Survivor, really, where every single week there's a power shift. And Jeff teased it, and he was not lying. And we see that up to the very end. We're like, Sam and Genevieve are out. Oh, no, they're not. Now it looks like Rachel and Sue are out. Nope, no, they're not. Now it looks like Genevieve's out. Now she is. And now who's on the outs? I don't really know, because we still have a fire making challenge and immunity. So, Zach, why don't we get into our rankings? I do want to pull up. We will do our fantasy recap for the finale once it's done. We're going to bring Austin and Ingrid back on, and we're going to do like a full fantasy recap. But this is our power rankings. Obviously, last week, because we're not going to call it the finale because it's still the penultimate episode. episode, we are going to just take it as a normal score. And we both did pretty well. We both had the bottom spot. It's just you had Genevieve, I had Andy, but we were both right. I thought Genevieve would squeak through. I thought Sam would be the second boot. You also thought Sam would be the second boot, but you had Andy up 3. So you have gained on me, though. You're only 6 points behind. And how we normally do it for a finale is we like give out 5 points if you're on the nose, and then if you're 1 placement off, you get 4 points. If you're 2 placements off, you get 3. But with only 4 people, that just feels so like unnecessary. So I was gonna ask you, Zach, how do you want to do it for Final Four in terms of points? Do you want it to be just like if you get it right, you get 2 or 3 points, and if you don't get the right placement at all, you get 0? Or do we want to give it just like a
No, I
point?
don't want to do that. I'll never have a chance to get back.
Like if you get 4th place correct, you get a point. 3rd place correct, you get 2. 2nd place, you get 3. Winner, you get 4 points. Like, how do you? I want to give you, because you are lagging right now, I want to give you the best chance to catch up. And I think because we're both going to be kind of on the same page anyway, but I'm hoping we're a little different at least. What do you think?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think we should do for scoring for the finale? Sounds like a fair idea.
Oh my God, I really don't know. I wasn't expecting this. Let me think.
I mean, we could do it the old way we do, but if it's
I don't mind.
The
old way we do is
5 points. If you're 1 off, you get 4. If you want to do it because there's only 4, you want to do it. If you get it right, you get like 5 points. Get it 1 away, you're 3, and then 2 away, you're 1. That way, it's a little bit wider of a gap.
I think that's fine. I think that's good.
All right. So basically, if you predict the right placement for all 4 of these boots, you can get up to 20 points, 5 per boot. If you are 1 off of 1, you'll only get 3 points, and if you're 2 off, you'll only get 1 point. So that's going to kind of be how we do it. Cool. All right. And if you're 3 off, somehow you're 3 off. If you predict the winner and they're 4th place, you won't get any points.
That would be
all right.
crazy.
Cool. So Zach, fire making. We're already here. We've already gone past 6th and 5th. We're already here at Final Four. How do you see Final Four working out in terms of who goes into fire and who is your fire making loser?
Okay. How do I see it going? I think, again, I'm going to go with the boring thing. I think Rachel's going to win immunity. I think she's going to put Sam in with Sue, thinking that Sue is the better option. And I'm just going to call it. I have flip-flopped back and forth on this so many times. I'm going to do something maybe a little bit different than you, Dylan, so that we have a little variation. I think that Sue is going to lose.
Okay.
I think Sue's going to lose and she's going to go out and fire.
Okay, very cool.
Apparently, the popular choice, as per Haley Keener, has been that a lot of people think that Teeny is the fire-making loser.
Well,
which
that's
seems
what
to be exactly what
I was saying. Okay, but here's how I think it goes down. I also think Rachel's winning. I also think it would be cool that if like Rachel has this dominant season, makes these big flashy moves with advantages. We've never really seen this, at least in the new era, of the power player being the person who gets all advantages and stuff and gameplay and steamrolls, being a woman. Like Kenzie was a very social game player. She didn't play a lot of like trinkets and tricks. Marianne had an idol, but she used it as like a cool like showcase at Final Tribal. But like we haven't seen like a big like power advantage player winner in a while for women. The last winner we saw really like that was Tony in 40. But that is why I think Rachel's going to win. She's going to break the record, or she would tie the record for female immunity wins, which would be cool. She'd win 4, which is the record for women. The record is 5, but no woman has ever gotten 5, so she will not unfortunately break that record. But I think she's going to tie the record, and I think she brings Sue with her. I think she's going to say, you know what, you're the easiest boot, and you're the person who was loyal to me. We both got out Andy together. And I also think Teeny's going to be like, I want Sam. Put me in against Sam, coach. And I think it's not going to work. I think Sam's going to beat Teeny in fire, and I think Teeny's going to go out and 4th. Also, just because I think that there was that scene when Teeny like essentially came out and figured out their non-binary on the island, where right after that emotional, powerful story, they held up their bag and was like, and of course my bag just caught fire, and like holds up the bag and it's like torched. So either that could mean one of two things. Either Teeny redeems themselves and like the whole story is that they are the fire making winner. So after all this, it's like the Jake thing. Yeah. After all this turmoil and struggle and being on the wrong side of every single vote, now Teeny wins fire and that's their win. Or it's gonna be that whole like I just can't I keep
Right.
trying, I can't keep trying, and that's just my story is I could just never quite get it. I would like to see Teeny beat Sam in fire. I think that would just be cool, just from an archetypes perspective as well. I really like Sam. I really came around to him these last few episodes. I think right now, if who I wanted to win, I think Sam is my number 2 who I want to win. Actually, it's actually really funny. I think I ranked these 4 based on who I want to win to least want to win. I just think Teeny, it's like hard for me to root for Teeny because of the gameplay, but I really do want them to have at least one little victory at the end. It would be really, really cool.
Right.
I also see a world where Sam wins and Teeny's like, I'll take out Rachel, and then loses to Rachel. I also see a world where Teeny puts themselves in against Rachel and loses. I don't know, though. I just don't see a world where I just don't see Teeny beating Sam in fire. And right now,
Right.
if I'm thinking of the 4 who's most likely to win immunity, Sam hasn't really won immunity, I don't think, right? Like, I don't think he's won a single immunity. Teeny hasn't either. So between Sue and
Yeah.
Rachel, I think Rachel has a better chance of winning a challenge. So that's kind of my process of elimination. I really don't want that to happen because I just want something unpredictable. But
Right.
that's why I like that you put yours there. So now we're at the final 3. So our final 3s are basically Rachel, Sam, and then you have Teeny in your final 3. I have Sue in mine. It should be no surprise. I have Sue as, I'm going to say it right now, 0 vote finalist. I think at that point, even Caroline and Gabe, I think they are good enough players to recognize that they need to vote for the better player. It's kind of like Carson voting for Jam Jam instead of Carolyn. Carson should have voted for Carolyn based on loyalty. And even post-game, he's even said, I wish I'd voted for Carolyn. But at the end of the day, he voted for the best player. Because there's also that strange case scenario where it's like, what if you do give a like, hey, I'm going to give you a good pat on the back vote. And then everyone does that and Sue wins the game. Like, I think they're just thinking, you know what, I'm going to vote for the most worthy winner. So I think Sue's going to get 0 votes here at the finale. Even though I will say, I think Sue's a very underrated player. She's won challenges. I think the fact that she was such a loyal player hurt her in ways, but also I think benefited her most of all because people just wanted to protect her. She was never a target. And the only time she was targeted was against like Saul, and she got 1 vote. So I really like Sue. I do think she's a little underestimated, but also like reasonably the 0 vote finalist. Who do you think's or who do you think's in 3rd place?
I mean, no, you just said it. I do think, unfortunately, Teeny will probably end up our 0 vote finalist.
Okay.
It's sad, but it is unfortunately probably. I just don't. I think between Rachel and Sam, I just don't think they're going to be able to net a vote, which is sad because I feel like unfortunately, Teeny has probably had the biggest fall from grace for the fan base, but I like still happens to be a person that like I really would like to see pull out a victory. I know there's really not really a way for them to do that, but it's I know I have them in the finale. I want them to be in the finale because knowing who they are.
It was your winner pick
through a friend, and again, it would not be the. It would be the second time in the new era that I've picked the winner and they end up the 0 vote finalist. It's really great. If you need a non-winner, you go to Dylan, and if you need a 0 vote finalist, you go to me. That's just how it goes.
And do you remember who you had in 3rd place and who I had in 2nd place in our very first predictions? Miss Rachel.
Yeah,
so we predicted a lot of good players this year. Our TK was our one big loss, and so was Asia. But like otherwise, like we both had Rachel going really far. We both had Teeny going really far. And I don't want to talk about where we all had Sam because I had Sam very low. I had Sam as the second boot of the season.
I think I had him. I think I had Sam. I think I had Sam as merge boot or like right before merge boot.
Remember. Yeah. But like the fact that we called Rachel and Teeny going to the finale is like cool. Like we called that. That's cool.
And then it really comes down to the two of them. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if our rankings are pretty much exactly the same. I would imagine, aside from Teeny and Sue being swapped. We want Rachel to win, and Sam probably ends up the second. And I think the truth of the matter is, maybe that's not what your ranking is, Dylan, but I just think that Rachel is going to be able to defend her position more. And I really do think, and if anything else, I kind of alluded to it before, I think Sam is going to try and take credit for Operation Italy, and I think it's going to piss Andy off. And I think that is going to be his downfall, is that I still think people like, I think Genevieve probably still votes for Sam because of her insight into his gameplay.
Yeah.
But I think that pissing Andy off is probably going to be his downfall, which would be a beautiful kind of circle, like a story with a little bow put on top, or the icing and the cherry on top. because I think Andy voting for Rachel would be a really wonderful end to their story of I wanted a person day one on the island, and the person who I had chosen, even though they turned against me and we didn't work for each other, my person is the reason I win. And I think that it would be a really cool thing to see that or that Andy actually is probably the deciding vote for Rachel to win. I think that would make a predictable finale worth it. That would make it very, very much worth it, I think. In my opinion, Rachel needs to win immunity in order for this to happen. If she does not win immunity tonight, this is just not happening, and we know it right off the bat. We're going to be like, oh, well, we were wrong. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Rachel, or rather, let me say, Rachel needs to not win immunity, and neither does Sam. That's when we'll know, like, okay, great. Yep, cool, very good. We know that we were wrong. If Sam wins immunity, we still could end up with this, depending on who.
Yeah, if Sam wins immunity, I think Rachel still beats whoever in fire. Like the only thing that would make it like a more entertaining finale for me would be if like Teenie won immunity and then it's Sam versus Rachel in fire, and that basically decides the winner. But even then, like, it would still be kind of boring if Sam won, because then it'd be like, all right, Sam's winning. But Teenie could then be like, I'm the one who did it. But I don't know. I agree. I have Rachel in 1, Sam at 2. I just think right now it's the most obvious. And I think, yes, there's the room for the Gablers. I think Gabler has made us all a little weary of being so sure about the winner at the end. But the problem with that season was we were so sure Jesse was losing. We weren't so sure that Cassidy was winning, but we were like, there's really no other option, because it's not going to be Carla. It's not going to be Jesse. We're like, I guess it's going to just be Cassidy. And we were both pretty confident in it. Whereas I think every season, even last season, it was such a close vote, Kenzie and Charlie, but we still fully thought Kenzie was winning in the end. We were like, yeah, it's Kenzie. And even 45, I know that was our rare episode where Zach did his rankings. He sent them in via video, and he had Jake winning it all in the blind side. But even then, it was close with D and Austin, but like we knew D was winning at that point. So I really just think it's one of those easy wins. And that's also why I think the fact that they split up into 2 finales is dumb. But I hope I'm wrong, because you know what? It would make more sense if this is a crazy finale and we get like a Teenie winning with Sue as a runner-up and Sam as like a 0 vote finalist, and like that would be such a cool,
that would
like,
be cool.
Yeah, and then I'd be like, now that makes sense why they split.
I think a lot of fans would be really mad, but I think it would be cool.
So now I just really want to quickly go through just each juror and guess who they're most likely to vote for. Let's say it's of our final 3. Let's just say of the 4, like who they're most likely to vote for, just so we can kind of just like have a final bow on this conversation. Sure. Sierra.
Sam.
It's okay. See, this is interesting. I still feel like there's a world she would vote for Rachel, though, just because they were on the original tribe and she might respect the girl power of it all. But I have to agree with you. The only thing is, like, she has been on the jury the longest. Could she have the groupthink mentality of like, everyone's going for Rachel, I'll go for Rachel?
Right.
So that's going to be 1 vote Sam. So I'm just going to put a tally next to Sam's name for you and Rachel for me, because I think she would still vote for Rachel, just so we can predict the vote count here. All right. Saul, who does Saul vote for? I think if Teenie's there, I could see him voting for Teenie for sure. But he also gave that advantage to Rachel, and she voted him out. So I don't know if he's gonna be happy for Rachel, pissed at Rachel. I have no idea who he would vote for. Who do you think he would vote for?
I'm gonna give him the vote for Teenie, because I really don't want to see Teenie be a 0 vote finalist in this scenario.
Okay.
Which is going to come into a little bit of a discrepancy later, I think, because I think I'd have to agree that somebody else would probably do the exact same if another person in the 4 is sitting at the finale. But actually, I think they might be less likely to just go with that mentality. It's probably very clear who I'm talking about, but you know what I mean.
Okay, I would give the Saul vote of my 3, because I don't have Teenie there. I would give it to Rachel, just because like he did give that advantage to Rachel, and I think there's a world where Rachel's a really good schmoozer, and she's like, and thank you, Saul. Like without you, Saul, I wouldn't be here, and I really appreciate that. And he might. I don't think Saul would be petty and be like, yeah, right, yeah, you're here because of me. I think he'd be like, cool. You know,
he'd be like, wow, I agree. I had an impact on what happened.
If Teenie's there, I think he's voting for Teenie. I agree. Yeah. What about Gabe? Do you think Gabe votes for Sue if she's in the final 3, or do you think he would vote for Game?
I do think he votes for Sue if she's in the finale. Okay.
But of your
the final 3, of the 3, I think he probably votes for Sam.
Okay.
Again, I do also just think it depends on how much influence Andy has over the jury, because I can also see a world where Andy convinces people, you know, Sam's going to try and take credit for the things that I did, and just watch. And
Mm.
I think if he does that, then he probably votes for Rachel.
Yeah, I my final three has Sue in it, but I just really don't see Gabe just voting for Sue because she's Sue. Also, because he wants to play like Russell Hantz, I don't think he would vote like a loyal guy. I think he would vote for the best player who was the most cutthroat. So
Yeah.
I'm at 3 votes Rachel right now. You're at 2 Sam, 1 Teeny. Now we're at Kyle. I think Kyle would never vote for Sue for me. I don't remember him bonding at all with Sam, so I think by
No.
default he would go for Rachel, but I don't know.
He's my Rachel, my first Rachel pick. This
Okay.
is when I think things start to turn for Rachel.
Okay. Caroline, again, I don't think she's gonna go with her heart for Sue. I think there's a world where she could give a throwaway vote to Sue, but I'm having her as a vote for Rachel as well. So I'm at 5 Rachel.
She's a Rachel vote for me.
All right, so you're at 2 Rachel, 2 Sam, 1 Teeny. All right, Andy, this is the one where you said is a very pivotal vote. I do think Andy would vote for Rachel over Sam because also Rachel's the one who on the way out was like, you know, you shouldn't have told me how good your game was, bro. Like you shouldn't have said all you said. Like I think he's gonna respect. I think he's someone who wouldn't be petty against Rachel for that. I think he would, like you said, kind of be a little petty about Sam if he tries to take credit for opportunity. So is he a Rachel vote for you as well?
He's a Rachel. He's a Rachel.
All right, so you've had Rachel officially take the lead now, but let's see how these final few votes pan out. So Genevieve, where do you think Genevieve?
Genevieve's probably a Sam vote.
Okay, I actually agree with you. I think she just yeah. Talk about why you think she's a Sam vote, and I'm gonna second guess myself.
I think she is gonna see her and Sam as like, hey man, I know what your gameplay was like. I know how much you had to do to try and overcome some situations that you were in, and I think for her the big thing is going to be, I think she would have the idea that if the roles were reversed, he would have voted for her. I don't know if I necessarily think that that is a correct assumption, but I think she might have the mentality of, you know what, you would have voted for me if you were in my position, so I'm going to give you the vote as well.
Yeah, I see. I want to think the same thing also, but also I'm thinking he did sell out her fake idol. But could she be like, good game of you? I would have done the same, or is she gonna be like, fuck you, bro, and go for Rachel? Because that whole last episode was so about like Rachel and Genevieve were like, well, whoever's gonna get out the other is gonna win. Like me and you, girl. Like we're going against each other. This healthy rivalry. I'm like, if she goes strategy, I see her going Rachel. If she goes with her heart, she'll probably go Sam. So I'm thinking, like, is Genevieve going to vote on heart? I think, honestly, for the story of it, and because it's such a community season, I could see Genevieve being the person who comes into this game so strategic and at the end votes with her heart. So I will give her that Sam vote. I'm going to say Rachel doesn't win unanimously, and that's her one vote she loses is Genevieve's, even though I just feel like Genevieve would recognize the game, but I don't know. So you have Sue as your final juror. Who is Sue voting for here in this?
I think that because, and based on where I have her going out, I think Sue kind of aligns with Caroline on her on the way that things have gone, and she decided, like, Caroline is like, we've got to vote for Rachel, and I think that is how Rachel wins.
Yeah, because you have Rachel winning 4-3-1. That's cool. I would love a vote that close. That's a very Charlie Kenzie vote. Even though I guess Ben didn't get any votes, but anyway, I think Teeny would vote for Rachel too. There's no way Teeny's voting for Sam. I could see a world where Teeny votes for Sue, but we haven't really seen Teeny bond with Sue necessarily. No. They work together a few votes. So I have Rachel winning vote 7-1-0. You have Rachel winning 4-3-1. I think your outcome is a lot more fun than mine, so I'm hoping for that one. But yeah, that is going to be our finale recap or finale predictions and part 1 recap. It's so stupid. Just a few last comments I want to highlight before we call it a day. Nina says, "Let's go, Rachel." Yeah, we're a big Rachel household here. We're big fans. I was a big Genevieve fan, but now that Genevieve's out, I have to fully back Rachel there. JD says, "Operation Italy, best episode of New Era. Shades of the Eric blindside from Micronesia, where Parvati and Suri blindsided Eric with the necklace. Hey, listen, that was an iconic move. I don't think it'll ever be topped, but you might be right." Carly said Operation Italy pissed her off because they got her girl out, Caroline, but I can respect the move. I was so excited when
Carly and I are aligned in that.
Yeah.
Carly and I are aligned in that. Caroline was a big sleeper pick for me. In fact, and I think we said it the last time we were here, she had the most, she had all of a sudden in my eyes, the highest probability of winning the entire season.
Yeah.
And then they took her out and sad.
Yeah. Then JD says, I love Teeny. My issue is what was Teeny's move that they can point
Correct.
to. I find it funny after everything last episode. They still voted Sam. Yep. Yeah, they still voted Sam
Correct.
out somehow. Yeah, and that's, I think, all JD's rooting for Rachel. Carly's pulling for Rachel. So everyone's pulling for Rachel. So what would be the chaotic boot order is if they get Rachel on fire. It's the Jesse of it
Correct.
all. Like Sam, let's say Teeny wins and puts themselves in fire, gets out Rachel or whatever. How do you think let's just hypothetically, Rachel's not there. Really quickly, Sam, Sue, Teeny. How do you think that falls out? Do you think Sam wins pretty unanimously, or do you think it's a little bit more all over?
I don't know, man. I don't know, because I think certain people would rather not vote. And I think this might be Sam's fatal flaw, is that I think people would rather not vote for Sam over voting for, like, I think they'd rather do, I think instead of looking at his gameplay, and I think this would probably sour a lot of people on the season, which would be sad to see, is I think a lot of people based
Like almost like
on,
Deshaun.
yeah, like they'd rather just not vote for Sam over voting for gameplay. Like, yeah, Sam's the better game player. Sure. I don't want to vote for him. Because, and I think, again, I know I'm giving him a lot of credit, but I think Andy is a huge factor in that, because I think that, and I wouldn't be thinking it if they hadn't really harped on this feeling that Andy had all season of like, I'm having my 13 going on 30 moment. These people are underestimating me. They keep thinking this of me, but really I'm this type of person. If Andy wasn't having so many of those, and then Operation Italy, and then he goes out, I really do think it would be probably more, I think it would be more likely that people would just be like, we're not going to vote for them over voting for Sam. But I think if Andy gets to that jury and he goes, listen, everyone, I'm going to tell you right now, this is why I don't think Sam is a good player at the end of the day, because, you know, he lays out, he's going to try and take credit for my move. He's going to try and take credit for my plan. Just you watch. I can see a world where the underdog that Sam has kicked down so many times as just another way for him to continue moving forward is his own downfall. That would be a very cool story beat, I think. I don't know if it's likely,
then the question is it Sue or Teeny? And I honestly think, you know, who's the one who's been saying, because I'm looking at their overall season stories. I think Teeny's is more of like, I'm finding myself, everything I'm trying isn't working, but like I will stick up for myself. Sam's his whole, I'm the glue guy. I'm not the guy up in front. I'm not the guy behind. I'm right here in the middle. I'm playing all sides. I'm the glue who's keeping things together. I'm the wolf in wolf's clothing. I'm not hiding, but I'm not gonna be all up in front. And then Sue's story is, those youngins underestimate me. And then when I'm sitting there at the end, they'll be like, wow, the old lady got me. You know who has the biggest winner quote of those three? It's Sue. Like, what if Sue's our winner and like we're all just being gooped and gagged and like this is like Gabler 2.0?
I was gonna say we're being Gablered.
I'm gonna clip it right here. If Sue wins 47, you heard it here first. Sue is gonna pull off the impossible. Sue is gonna win immunity, put herself in a fire against Rachel, beat Rachel in fire, and win the game unanimously. Gabe and Caroline are going to advocate for her. Everyone's going to be shocked, and Sue's going to reveal her real age, and everyone's going to be not so shocked. And then Kyle's going to say his offensive thing there, and then Rome's going to be like, I told you so. No, I'm kidding. That is not going to happen. But we can only dream. But yeah, no hate speech. But Chrissy G asks, do you think it's going to come down to faking fire? Yeah, I think if Rachel loses, it comes down to that, and that'll clear it up. But I think if she wins, if it's a fire making between Teeny and Sue, I don't think it changes anything. I don't see where that would ever be a world where it's Teeny versus Sue, because that would mean Rachel and Sam would take each other, or Teeny would put themselves in the fire with Sue, and I just don't see that happening. But I think fire making is going to kind of at least tell us if Rachel wins or not, you know, and that's, I think, where Chrissy says, I think Rachel will lose in fire making with Sam winning. So there we go. There's one outlier in our chat. Chrissy G does think that Sam is going to win and Rachel's going to lose in fire. So yeah, it seems to be the big question of the night. Is Rachel going to survive the round of fire? That is the big question, because if she does, I think she wins. If she doesn't, then it might be a little closer than expected. We might see a Sue victory. We'll see. But thank you guys so much for watching. Zach, what else where else can they find you? What else can they expect from you?
At the same place you always do. I don't have anything. It's
all right.
really nice.
I know you're like, my shows are over. I'm all set.
I'm all set. You guys can find Dylan at the State Theater in New Jersey in just a few short weeks, playing the title role in Joseph and the Amazing
Just 1
Technicolor
week.
Dreamcoat.
It's a little less than 2 weeks away. Yeah.
Little
Isn't that
little
crazy?
less than 2 weeks by the end of the month. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
We have to pick the day that we're going, so we have to
Oh,
figure that
I hope
out.
there's tickets. It's selling out,
And
but it's a big theater. You'll be able to get tickets. But yeah,
yeah,
are we gonna have a post show live? We won't do it live because I have a rehearsal for the show Zach just mentioned. So I will be watching the finale on the Pacific time starting at 11, and I will be tweet. I could tweet. I could live. Actually, I'm not gonna tweet because I don't want to open Twitter after 10 p.m. because I don't want to get spoiled. But I will at the end of the episode tweet my feelings, and then as I said at the top of the episode, next week at some point or maybe 2 weeks depending on, because my show is going to be in full swing, we're going to have Austin and Ingrid back to look at Zach's incredible fantasy dominance for his fantasy team that he wasn't
I
even
didn't
here
lose
to pick.
people until this last episode. That's crazy.
And he did not even draft them. He gave us a list, and we drafted on auto draft for him. But we will also do a postmortem, not just of the finale, but of the season as a whole. We'll kind of just go over who the best players were, the players we most want to see from this season on 50. Right now, I think the 2 boots that Zach had on his fantasy team that are now gone are the 2 biggest contenders for 50. We'll talk about it. And then we will talk about what's next and what we can expect in the new year. And we thank you all for watching, as always. We love our live episodes. Yes, that is cool. Thank you, Chris, Chrissy G. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. It is always fun to do these live. Have so many great viewers in the chat: Chrissy G, Nina Ruth, JD Domash, Carly Perkins, and I'm sure a lot of others because I've seen at least up to 17 people watching.
And Reese.
So, Reese, she's been back there watching the show, and the leaf blower outside, and the sun who didn't want any more of the show and decided to tuck itself away and bring out the moon. The sun was done because
show.
now Zach's background is totally dark, as is mine. Mine is always dark because you don't have a window behind me. But thank you guys so much for watching this, and stay tuned. Have a very happy holiday. If you don't check out our postmortem of the season, if you've had enough of season 47, Zach, really quickly, who has Recipe for Reality?
Andy, dude, I'm gonna give it to him. He deserves it. Operation Italy is a masterful move, and I hope that it cements Andy as a top player in the new era for sure, which is something that we would never have said a couple of weeks ago.
And I will say, because you already took Andy, and I don't want to just double down, I will pick the other third of the operation who also left this week, Genevieve. The reason she went out is because she's a threat, and she is a good player. She's a savvy player. She had probably the most interesting character journey on the season. We haven't really talked about her. We'll talk about her in our season recap. Just how great her season was, her arc and her journey. She was my rooting interest the entire season since the Keyshawn vote. She will remain my rooting interest when she's on Survivor 50. She's the next Amanda Kimball, the next Parvati Shah, the next Kim Spradlin, the next Sari Fields, just a little whiter and a little more Canadian. That is my opinion. I think she's awesome. And probably if I put all the new era players in a game, she'd be someone I'd have the most confidence in making it deep in the season. Her or Kenzie or Jam Jam. It's a very small conversation. Or D, all the best players. And Rachel being one of them as well. So we'll see tonight how it goes down. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for more. Also, two Small Bites episodes coming this week because I want to make up for lost time. I have one ready to go. I just have to edit, of the best penultimate boots before the finale. Hard for this week because we don't really know what the finale actually is. So is it Caroline? Is it Genevieve? I don't know. Most iconic penultimate boots. And then I will do my reveal of all the casting poll results that Matt and I put together for our Survivor 50 to reveal who you, the viewers, thought should have been on Survivor 50. I will do that. So yes, Jen for 50. Love that. Hashtag Jen for 50. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.